just like that.
All right, so last week, it turns out we turned away a prophet at the door.
Yeah, what's the story with that?
Okay, it was edited out of the recording.
Yeah.
So the old man came to the door last week, and I recognized him from the neighborhood. And he's like...
Yeah, I know that guy too.
It's not 100%. Just doesn't seem 100% with it. And
Either that or he's at 100 and we're somewhere at 60.
Right. That's one of the two options. So I got home and I told my father that, the guy, because the way we recognize him is that his hat, my father really likes his hat. So I said, the guy whose hat you like showed up at our recording. So my father says to me, he says, that guy with the dirty hat is a major Kabbalist.
Really?
I said, what are you talking about? He's a little crazy. What are you talking about? He's like, they say that he's a crazy, that he's a big Kabbalist. So
it's pretty classic here in Israel that they would have.
Yeah, but that's when I texted you. I said, oh my gosh, the man was a prophet. And we turned him away. I mean, he didn't want to come in, but we could have offered him to come in.
He only spoke Hebrew.
I mean, he may have had something to offer us not in conjunction with what we were actually talking about last week, but he definitely had
his prophecy.
I'm saying, it could. I mean, he didn't ask to come in. Once he saw that, he recognized me, so he was like, "Oh, okay, fine. We're good." He just wanted to make sure no one was breaking into the shul, but he was a prophet, and he's possibly a prophet. All right,
jump in.
Let's jump right in. This is going to be hopefully a monthly thing where we're going to have a Truth and Whiskey episode, where basically it's going to be a little less deep conversation.
I mean, way deeper.
No, I should have said it wrong. The conversation is going to be deep, but it's not going to be as important topics as what we usually talk about.
Right.
Or
just might take a very different route.
We won't know until we try it. So this is going to be our first session.
Personally, I hope that a lot of our topics over the weeks get picked by listeners.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my main thing, is that people should send in actual questions. Email us, tweet us, topics that they want heard discussed.
Yeah, 100%.
That makes the most fun for me personally.
Yeah, I mean, it will also give us more material to choose from.
Yeah.
Definitely easier than having to pick up different topics every week.
We've done figured out most of the world, so we're running out of topics.
We still need to share that with the world, that we figured it out for them.
I done figured it out. Right?
Just 1 week at a time. We're going to let you know how we figured it out. All right, so this week we're going to talk about Star Wars.
Yes. If you're not a Star Wars fan, go to Gehinnom. You can find that between the two palms. Isn't there two palms?
That is the Gemara.
Right?
That is the Gemara. But, so I'm not a Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
But I'm going to represent all the non-Star Wars fans. And you're going to teach all the Star Wars fans how to see the inner depth of Star Wars from a Jewish perspective, not just from the Gaish perspective, which just never gets as deep as the Jewish perspective.
It can if you listen to Dr. Jordan Peterson. Have you listened to him yet at all?
No, you never told me to.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Dude's a genius, man.
What does he talk about?
Everything. Life. He's a psychologist.
Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness?
Yeah, but he doesn't really believe in the pursuit of happiness.
Then forget about it.
Why?
Well, okay, we can't talk about this now. We're running out of
time. No,
time.
Happiness is super subjective.
Yeah, well, okay.
Here's something that I was talking about before we get to Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I was talking about with my sister the other day. And it's going to sound a little bit crazy, I think. But, let me just pose it as a question. Do you think that a country, let's say there's a big country, powerful country, they claim stand for good, right? Do you think they should have any sort of a right to tell another country what they're doing is wrong if they're not, if they're saying it from a non-religious standpoint? Meaning, let's just say, we'll just go right for it. Let's say America, right?
Yeah.
They turn to whichever country, I don't know what, and they say, hey, quit it with the clitorectomies, right?
It's a religious thing.
It's a religious thing.
Mm. Hold on. So you're saying can a country say something from a secular point of view against a religious view, or against
any view.
Against anything. Well, I do believe that there is a general... The world needs to learn how to work with each other. That meaning internally you can... Meaning that you want the world to be the best and most productive place possible. And if the basic thing I would say from a totally secular viewpoint is that if your actions affect me in a way that is counterproductive to the full production value of the world, then I have a right to stand up and say something about it.
But how can anyone claim that they know what constitutes productivity?
I think the world has right now a very good idea of what they believe is the best thing for the...
But if from a secular point of view, that's meaningless.
What do you mean? No. What are you talking about? The most economic security, the most just regular personal security from country against country, agricultural production. Saying there's many things that determine the continuation of the world and the population.
But who said that that's good?
If there is an argument about what is the best way to do it, which for the most part, most things are not macro arguments, they're micro arguments about what is the best thing to do. But if there's a macro argument about how is the best way to handle it, then hopefully countries can actually sit down and discuss it like we do. Without the whiskey. Well, maybe with the whiskey too.
You probably drink a lot of whiskey. Yeah, but here's the thing though. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are founding American ideals, right?
Yeah.
Define pursuit of happiness.
No, I'm sure it's subjective. I have no problem with pursuit of happiness.
What is
subjective.
happiness?
I have no problem with pursuit of happiness being subjective, but even in America, but in America they believe that my right to the pursuit of happiness cannot infringe on your right to the pursuit of happiness.
Right, but that's only because we're playing in the same game, meaning
right.
we're
So
Americans.
Globally, it's the same game.
No, it's not.
Why not?
Why should it be the same game? They never agreed to join our game of life, liberty, and pursuit.
No,
of
so
happiness.
if a country decides not to do that, the question was, as a country, do I have a right to go to another country and say we believe that what you're doing is in violation of the safety of the world? No, we weren't talking about morality. No, but morality in the sense of this is inhibiting my ability to live peacefully.
Right, but let's say they're doing something in their own country that does not affect other countries.
So that's a different question.
It's they're eating people.
So that's a different question. Now we're talking
has the
completely.
Right to say that what they're doing is
wrong.
talking
completely internally.
Yeah,
talking completely internally. That's a different question. That is a great question.
That's the question.
From a secular perspective.
No.
From a secular perspective.
Yeah.
Not from a religious perspective.
No.
From a secular perspective. Yeah. No, I do not.
Right.
But the second people from that country come to me to defend them, if I decide to protect those people, the other country cannot have any, meaning they cannot, if the other country comes after their people, I can then go against that country. Meaning, because I've decided to accept the people who I feel are being persecuted, I've decided to give them protection.
Right, so that you basically, I think we would be on the same page with that then. We should really not be on the same page as much. It would make it more fun.
What, you want me to not be Jewish now? No, the truth is somebody... No, but I think it's very important. I think you have to be able to divide, especially as a religious person, you have to be able to divide your worldview by secular and by religious. And there could be things which, as a religious person, I believe them, but if I was secular, I can understand why you don't believe them. Now, I try personally in my life as much as possible to try and line up those viewpoints. Because I want to feel that my religious views are not just because someone told me to do them, it's because that's actually how I am as a person, which I think is the whole point of religion. That it permeates all parts of the body.
Secularism.
Meaning, I don't want to get too heavy about this because I really want to talk about Star Wars. I really want to talk about Star Wars.
It'll tie into Star Wars
when
it comes.
Okay, so let's say I no longer hold this viewpoint, but at a certain point, when you look at the question of Well, let's not do that then. Let's talk about war.
Yeah.
Right? Let's talk about war. So, from a religious perspective, there are very clear viewpoints on when you go to war and when you don't go to war.
You're talking about Jewish.
Yes, talking
Okay.
about a Jewish perspective. And there are times
Strictly
very clearly.
Jewish.
Sorry?
Strictly Jewish.
Strictly
When you say
Jewish.
religious.
Yeah, I'm
right
talking.
now,
Yeah,
I'm talking
I
about-
should strictly Jewish. And there are times when war is mandatory. You must go to war. For example, the Torah obligation to kill out Amalek. Right? It applies even nowadays. We just have no idea who Amalek is, and we can't go around just killing random people. That's not the point of the mitzvah. The point of the mitzvah is to eradicate
Eventually,
Amalek.
we're going to have to talk about that.
There's another perspective. Let's say you take the Quaker perspective, where all war is bad. So there was a certain point in my
I just
life.
can't help getting around whenever people talk about Quakers, thinking about the oats.
Well, that's what they're famous for.
Is that what they're famous for? Quaker oats?
Of course. And that and being peace-loving people, right? But
Oats don't necessarily sit well in my stomach, but
I like
I'll
oats.
give them a
I
pass.
like oats a lot. But I don't know that much about the Quaker lifestyle in general. But let's just focus on this perspective that they are very much against violence. And a Quaker saying is war is not the answer. And there was a time in my life, not such a long time, but there was a time in my life where I looked at that and I'm like, they're right. Very few things in the past however many centuries have been solved by war, right? Things have ended because the war has ended, or because one of the two parties involved in the war was completely eradicated.
Right.
But very few things have been solved by war. More problems than answers have come up from war. So yeah, war is not the answer.
Right.
Right? But then you take that further and you're like, no. That perspective of war is not the answer means that there's no such thing as a time where you should be in conflict with somebody, which is 100% wrong. First of all, conflicts don't necessarily need to be violent. But even if they are violent, there are times where violence is the answer. Does it need to be on a World War II level? Not necessarily, right? But to come and say that war is not the answer, right? That's not true, because there are times where, yes, World War II was necessary. The Nazis and the Axis were taking over the world, and they were doing it in a way which would not have fostered peaceful relations with everyone around them. They were searching for global domination. So at that time, a group of countries, the Allies, came together and said, we are going to stop this, and they returned freedom to many, many countries, and that has been a good thing. So yes, at times war is the answer. So that is now
It's a good thing for... That's what I'm saying. I agree with you, it's a good thing, but is it a good thing objectively or subjectively? Because it wasn't good for Germany. Well, you could argue it was good for Germany, but it wasn't good.
It was good for Germany.
No, it was good for Germany, but you could argue it wasn't good for the German leadership at the time. They
Okay,
didn't think it was
but
good.
Germany had another case where war was good for them. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's always going to go back and forth. But my point in that argument is that if you look at my original viewpoint, so my religious viewpoint is that, yes, there is an obligation for war at certain times. And my secular viewpoint is that, no, war is never a good idea, and it's never necessary. And then, when I develop my ideas, it comes out that my secular viewpoint goes together with my Jewish viewpoint. That's what I mean by that.
Interesting.
But we do agree on this point that ultimately, from a secular standpoint, I cannot determine morality in this world, which is actually one of the things whenever we have a God episode, which I'm sure will come up at some point. We talk about God and we talk about ultimate morality, is one of the reasons why ultimate morality must exist, because otherwise you come into quandaries like what we have, which is that if there's another country that's eating people and they're only eating their own citizens and they don't eat any foreigners and they're totally cool with everyone else, they don't get into wars, they don't cause economic strife or agricultural anything, no problems whatsoever, how am I supposed to tell them that their morality is is worse than mine?
Yeah, you can't.
You can't. So yeah, we're
least I
in
don't
agreement
think you
there.
can.
Yeah, I agree with you. We're in agreement.
So I think America's foreign policy should... I thought about this once for like a while. I don't know why. Probably stoned or something.
Could be.
And I was thinking, like, what, from my opinion, what should America's foreign policy look like? And I would think basically like super isolationist. up until there's a certain amount of either we get attacked on our homeland, right, or people are directly and purposefully screwing up trade routes, our trade routes.
Oh, so you just made a key point about trade routes, but keep going.
Or we get like literally I don't know how you would pick the number, but let's just say 100,000, but it would be probably more than that. But let's just say 100,000 signatures from a country saying our country is severely they're killing us or whatever it is, and we want your help. We specifically want your help.
Mm.
And then basically, I would just make the U.S. military like basically able to finish any war within 24 hours. To where basically it's like, okay, we never ever go to war, but if it pisses off enough, we'll take you out in about 24 hours.
That would be really crazy to do that. But I would ask you.
They could do it. They have the firepower to take out any country in 24 hours flat.
Yeah, I mean, it would
even
cause
without
mass devastation. But
yeah, I don't care.
I'm just saying, like you would totally render a whole country
useless for like 50 years. Yeah,
right, at least.
Yeah, I'm down.
Okay, good. But the
question
it's
like we told you we don't care what you do.
Yeah, I mean you only have
Just
to do that
piss us
once,
off.
and then no one's gonna worry. Then it's not gonna be a problem anymore.
All right.
No, I'm saying like if you would have to do that once. You did it once, but which is already a terrible thing to have to do that once.
Not necessarily.
No, I mean you don't want to wipe out a country, full of people. You don't want to do that. But the thing I would ask you, Just, is that you acknowledge that there would still be trade routes. Isn't having trade with other countries by definition not being isolationist?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be economically isolated.
So that's what I'm saying. Like you're just talking about military support, because economically you would be communications. You'd be totally whatever. Saying like you wouldn't. So you wouldn't share intelligence. You wouldn't share military technology. You wouldn't share. Saying that's really would be it, because economically you would be together, and I'm assuming that what's the word, infrastructurally, like if there was some sort of thing that improved society, you'd be together. Regular technology, you'd be together.
Yeah, well,
so that's not very isolationist.
I wouldn't have the government be too involved in that. I mean, I guess I would use the military to protect trade routes, but I wouldn't have the government too involved in.
Yeah, but I'm saying that's like you can't go to war with this guy's neighbors if they're friends. I'm not going to let you go to war with my neighbor if he's a friend of mine. So if there's a relationship between the two countries, whether it's on a government level, whether it's on an individual level, you can't. I mean, that's what happens nowadays. The U.S. government doesn't have relations with certain countries, but private companies do, and they have a say in what happens in conflicts with those countries, because they have controlling business interests. I mean, this is a movie plot, but it's actually true. Like the movies get it from somewhere.
It is true. I guess it's sort of sad in some ways, but either way, I don't know how we got all the way over there.
Well, you brought up a question about it, but you said it would connect to Star Wars, so the people want their Star Wars, Jude. We can't just talk about...
People are even Star Wars fans anymore.
People are Star Wars fans. They make enough money.
Yeah, they do. Statistically, they're losing, though. I just read recently that their sales on their little...
Well, from what I hear, the last movie was not as good.
I thought it was pretty terrible.
So there you go.
Cinematically, it was great. There's a lot of cool cinematic stuff.
But you can watch the first Star Wars ever made and get some cool cinematic experiences, and that was made in the 70s.
You could see the strings dangling off the top of the Death Star. It's like the guy dropped the string a little bit and sort of fell out of space for a second. Okay, I'm not going to go into... Do you know anything about Star Wars?
Yeah, I know.
You know the basic premise.
I don't know anything about the last two movies. That's not true. I know the characters' names.
Oh, yeah?
And I know very basic plot points. But I don't know anything that happened in the last movie. I know a little bit of what happened in the seventh movie. The first six movies, I know all the plots. I'm not familiar with all the fan forum discussions and stuff like that. But I know all the plots. I've seen them. I know what's happening.
All right, so I'm one of those people, by the way, who I enjoy watching the prequel. That's what it's called, right? The first three.
Yeah.
Not the first three?
Episode 1, 2, and 3.
Episode 1, 2, and 3.
The
I enjoy
prequels.
the prequels. I enjoy watching those more.
Even episode 1.
Yeah, I don't. A lot of people. Well, episode 2, for the most part, is just an awful movie because it's just super slow, and it's like way too dramatic with Hayden Christensen, who's not a very good actor. Why do they? For such a good series, they don't pick good actors except for Obi-Wan. Ewan McGregor happens to be one of my favorite actors alive.
You're saying for the prequels?
For all of them, Mark Hamill's a terrible actor.
He's a great Joker. You know,
Mark Hamill?
he's the voice of the Joker on Batman the Animated Series. It's fantastic.
I never saw Batman the Animated Series.
Ah, dude, it was actually it was before your time. It was before your time.
Things.
I used to watch him when I was a kid, and he's fantastic. He's really good. He still does it, I think.
He has a good voice. I just hear him yelling in like a weird sort of voice.
Yeah, as Luke, he's really a teenager. Really a teenager.
I didn't like what was going on over there. But basically, so I liked the first three. I liked how they made Anakin like super confused, dark, but like really powerful and good until he turns, obviously.
Do we need to give spoiler alerts or
no? If you haven't seen Star Wars, you're in that job.
That was a joke. That was a joke.
All right, but basically, okay. So there is some argument as to what people. There are people in the Star Wars world who hate midichlorians. They're not fans of the midichlorians. Do you know what the midichlorians are?
I don't know exactly what they are, but I've definitely heard this midichlorian argument. That's what tells you that you're an expert in the Force.
Yeah, it's like basically there are midichlorians and essentially it's like atoms. I mean, you could equate it somewhat to atoms. There are atoms in everything, right?
Okay.
So if you have a very high midichlorian count in your blood, you can much more easily connect with the midichlorians in other objects.
Mm-hmm.
So I personally like the addition of midichlorians to make the Force
rational.
Yeah. There are those who hate the midichlorian stuff.
I mean, I guess it makes sense that you can actually have a reason to point at somebody and say, oh, they might actually be a Jedi, apart from someone just sensing with his mind, like, oh, this guy's good, and this is like, there has to be something you can point at, no?
Yeah, I think it makes it cool that you can, that there's some basic like way that the Force works. Because now I can start to conceptualize, like, okay, well, how's he moving that rock? Because he's just attaching, or she is attaching themselves to the midichlorians in that thing and manipulating its current state. Which I think slightly ties into Kabbalah.
Why is that?
Well, Kabbalists are Jedis, basically.
No, because it's funny, because while you were talking about that, I was thinking, actually, that's not, there's no physical connection in what we call a metaphysical Judaism. You know, there's no reason that one person, you point at them or something physically about them and say that because of that, they're more likely to be a Kabbalist than somebody else.
True.
So what do you mean exactly?
What makes Kabbalists Jedis? No, what I was referring to is that, like, if you can attach yourself to the, if you learn to manipulate the building blocks of matter itself, so then you can, in some ways, you can do as you please with it. The more you learn how to manipulate it, you can do as you please with it, right?
Yeah.
That's what we do with science all the time. We learn the basic building blocks of matter around us. We figure out how to manipulate it, and we make things that are useful, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So people have like a really hard time as kids growing up. Let's say you're sitting in first, second, third grade, and like you bump into a story in Tanakh, right? In the Chumash, and you ask your Rebbe, like, well, how is that possible that he did this and this, or lifted up the giant boulder, or whatever it is, you know?
Right.
And they're just like, oh, it's a nes, it's a miracle, right? But I think that basically, like, there's more than one way to get from point A to point B, right? Presumably. There's not just one way to get there. So you can get there through science, which is manipulating the building blocks of matter, right?
Okay.
Or you can get there another way, which is this is going to be hard to explain, but basically it's like, imagine that I knew how to make a liquid congeal, which we can do now easily, right?
Okay.
I mean, maybe not all liquids, I don't know, but most liquids probably scientifically we can get them to a state to congeal.
Okay.
But they're not they're not using magic, right? They know the temperature, whatever it is, they add if it's something they needed to add, and the atoms themselves change form and congeal, right? So I don't find it so difficult to think that back in the day they did Nisim, they did miracles. They knew how to make the atoms congeal using other formats, using other tools. They had different tools. So it's like when you look back in history, you're not going to find that they had telephones and that they just got extinct somehow and we don't have them anymore, but that's how they were communicating long distance. They didn't have telephones. They had other ways of manipulating the matter around them to do what they needed to do. How does that connect to midichlorians? Because they're manipulating the matter around them because they're attuned to it. They're attuned to what it's made of. They tune themselves in by training themselves how to do it, and they can make use of these things.
See, I would use a different example than what you're saying. I would say something like the creation of a golem, which we see in the Talmud did happen several times. The most famous example is the one they say with the Maharal, but there's no historical evidence to say that actually happened.
Right.
But the Talmud does record several times that they created a golem.
The Medrash does too. You know, the Medrash claims that a golem of Yosef slept with Potiphar's wife.
Where is that?
He built the golem.
Where is that?
Mam Lois. It's probably in Yefei Torah.
Wow. Okay, I gotta check that out.
I can't remember. Either they actually slept together, or it was during while they were together in bed. She was like an occultist of sorts.
Okay.
And she realized that this thing was a golem.
So
also they say that Esther made a golem a few times to sleep with Achashverosh.
Okay, the examples that I've thought of a little more tame than that. In the Gemara, they talk about a couple times that they made a golem. But I don't think you necessarily see a pattern with the examples of people who made golems. Maybe Yosef is the exception to that. But you don't really see a pattern of someone who created a golem who was, either the greatest person of their generation or was had a different training than other people in their generation. You don't necessarily see a pattern of that. So it seems to be that certain people were able to have a better understanding of creation to the point where they could create some form of humanoid. It wasn't a full human like God could create because they didn't have a soul, but there's some sort of humanoid.
They can do that now. For all intents and purposes, they can do that now.
Yeah, but not with flesh and blood. This is
they can do the flesh and blood. I just read
but something that well, I mean, if you're talking about cloning animals,
cloning animals,
right.
So for a long time, they couldn't figure. The famous one is Dolly in 1996. They cloned a sheep.
Cloned a sheep.
Then they've cloned other animals since then, dogs, cats, but they have yet to been able to. Right, so they just did a monkey, which is a big deal because it's a primate.
Closest to humans, yeah.
And it's a certain kind of monkey. I can't pronounce it. M-A-C-Q.
No, monkey is spelled
It's like a certain kind of monkey, like a Maku's monkey.
I don't know. But what I would say to that, just to finish the point, is that that is sort of a manipulation of nature.
That's what it is.
Meaning like I have an understanding of nature, but it doesn't necessarily flow. It doesn't have to be a result of you being the highest level of the generation, unless those people, the highest level of the generation, just didn't do it, even if they could, and only certain people actually did it. But
I think that's how it was. I don't think everyone could do it.
No, I don't think everyone can do it. But you
study.
see the people who actually... No,
study.
for sure.
Just like nowadays, not everyone can...
No, for sure it took intense study, and it took a lot of understanding of the secrets of creation, and et cetera, et cetera. But what I mean is that the people who you see making golems in the texts are not necessarily the greatest people of their generation. They are great...
Right. I don't understand your point.
No, meaning my point is that there are certain people who, that's what I think is better in terms of understanding nature and being able to manipulate it. You know what I'm saying? And it's also not necessarily connected to a specific, you have to obviously be on a certain understanding and a certain spiritual capacity in order to perform it. But it doesn't necessarily flow like, oh, this person is for sure a Jedi. You know, this person is for sure somebody who can make a golem. It doesn't necessarily flow in that. It's from your understanding of how to manipulate matter. Right. So I would say more than being able to move the rock, I would say that would be a better example of that.
Yeah, I see that. But I think it's just to go back though is that really I don't have a hard time with miracles of old. People are like, I don't think you just have to chalk it up to some sort of faith-based thing in your head. That miracles happened in thousands of years ago. I mean, they clearly knew what they were doing to some degree because they made it, because we're here now. Meaning they survived, right?
Okay.
Which is already pretty good.
Yeah, but they didn't take enough showers. I mean, you know.
But we're still here now. Though.
Okay, so we made
Clearly the women were not that perturbed.
Okay.
But, no, I think that they, for instance, like this, and this didn't even happen so long ago. There's a story with the Vilna Gaon. There's also a story like this with the Ben Ish Chai, and presumably stuff like this, like there's stories like this in the Gemara all the time. But basically, there's a story. The Vilna Gaon lived in 1740,
something like that. Yeah, a little bit before the advent of the United States.
Really?
Yeah.
So did he ever talk about it?
There's a mention somewhere, I don't know if it's his writings or at the time, of a revolution going on
in the West,
in the British colonies. I don't remember if it was him writing about it. I don't remember if he lived that long or whatever. But I remember the way I remember when he lived is I remember it was around the American Revolution.
Interesting. Yeah. So I think he was in the 1740s something, and there was a story about this this oligarch of sorts. Who lived somewhere near the Vilna Gaon, who converted basically to Judaism.
Okay.
And the Tsar, I think it was, at the time, wanted to kill the oligarch for converting, right? But since he was royalty, he gave him time in prison to think about it beforehand. And he just killed him right away. And after a few weeks, he was like, "No, I'm staying Jewish. I'm not gonna switch back." So basically, the night before they were going to kill this dude, the Vilna Gaon, basically, the story goes, he just walked right through the walls of the prison into his cell and, sat with him for a while. And, they learned some stuff together. And then basically he's like, look, if you want to get out, you can use these and these. You can use these and these names, Shemos, of Hashem.
Yeah.
And you can walk out. And the guy said... whatever it was the story, he said, I don't want to, I'd rather die al Kiddush Hashem. Because I don't have any kids anyway, whatever it is. So they say that nowadays there's on his grave, there's a tree that grows very interesting leaves that you don't find anywhere else coming out of his grave. Point is though, it's and then people are like, well, what's going on, man? How did he walk through a wall? I don't find it that difficult to believe that he walked through a wall. Because again, there's two ways to get from point A. There are multiple ways to get from point A to point B. Science perhaps could get me... Theoretically, science could take me through a wall also, if you separate the atoms well enough, right? And most of it, on the quantum level, it's 90% air anyway. It's only 10% matter.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So on a quantum level, if you separate the bumping together of the particles... for long enough, you could walk right through it. It's air,
right?
So it's not that complicated to me. For him to, he knows how the world works from top down, not from bottom up, right?
Right.
So basically, he manipulated it the same way as scientists would, just using different tools.
Right.
And what did he do? He didn't. It wasn't
and he didn't even need a physical, but that's also even better because he didn't. It's a greater thing than midichlorians because he didn't need a something from birth to help him with that.
Yeah, I'm not even tripping on the midichlorians no more.
Ah, okay.
But you see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I hear you. Yeah, because I was thinking, like, if I'm sure I believe that. And,
it's perfectly scientifically possible for it to happen. So
well,
he didn't have
I don't
tools.
know if it's scientific. It's not very scientific.
Why not? On the quantum level, you
to
can
just say a name and separate stuff. That's not scientific. To break something down.
No, but I'm saying scientifically, it's quite possible. I don't mean scientifically using the scientific method. I mean the parts of matter that are there.
If we could weaken the molecules in solid matter, we could walk through it.
Right.
So
and get them to stand still.
Right.
So maybe one day science will figure out how to do that on a quantum level, on the quantum level,
and
perhaps from top down, people have already figured out how to do it.
And we won't need doors to our houses anymore. We'll just walk through the walls.
Yeah.
You have a special genetic code.
Genetic code that the wall only recognizes you.
Right.
Or the U.S. government. And only you or
it's time to move, people.
The U.S. government can get into your house. It is pretty creepy though that we have front-facing cameras and forward-facing cameras, and people play those games with like augmented reality. When I first heard about these augmented reality games where you're walking around playing Pokemon in your room.
Yeah.
You're like walking around, both cameras are switched on. Both cameras are switched on.
Right.
Walking around your house. I'm not saying anybody's actually detailing this or gathering this info, but it's stored somewhere.
It's being stored. And
I'm not saying they're necessarily looking at it, or if they care or don't care. The fact of the matter is, it's stored somewhere. If somebody did decide that they cared, they have access to it technically.
There's definitely been themes in TV shows and movies about the blurring lines between reality and fantasy.
Well, then that's what is it, that 1985 dystopian, who's the guy? I don't know why I'm blanking on the author's name. George Orwell.
No, but I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about the blurring of the line between what's real and what's not real. Right?
Yeah.
And this was and it's been a theme for the past, 20, I'm sure for a while, but because there's always times of, it started off with people on drugs and then it got into technology and stuff like that. When am I awake and when am I sleeping? And this was Pokemon Go is the first example I saw of it actually happening in real life. Where you're literally sitting there like, oh yeah, there's a little creature right here because it says so on my phone.
Right.
So all of a sudden you're just you're trying to reach out and grab it and what's real and what's not real anymore. It was very. When I first saw that, I was like, I'm never downloading Pokemon
reality
Go.
Is even crazier. What they can do
I really
now.
Want to do it.
I've done it before. It's in like malls.
Oh, see, I haven't been to the American malls.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, bro. I had a roommate of mine like a couple months back. He had one of those super standard ones for like the Nexus whatever it was, one of the new Nexus phones.
Okay.
Like for an extra $200, they would send you also pretty standard virtual reality lens, which is basically put your phone in the back end and then put it on and clip earplugs in, whatever. Wasn't that like I've used better virtual reality goggles before, but this one I tried watching like a horror, a virtual reality like horror clip, like 5 minutes. Couldn't get through it. It's so nuts because wherever you look, you're in it. There's no like, oh, I'm not gonna look right now. No, you're still in it. It's crazy. Oh man, it's all a parable.
That's too much.
Forget about that movie that I don't like, The Matrix.
Oh yeah, no, we're not. I'm not a fan either.
I'm not a fan of that movie for a very specific.
I do believe though. I think it's very important. It's a very important movie, but it's not necessarily a good movie.
I thought it misses a few basic points of like a good movie plot. With that dude who's like I didn't even watch the full movie. I got bored in the middle.
So I have this thing where I separate what's important from what's actually good. I do this with music. I do this with sports. I do this with movies. The Matrix was a very important movie because it changed... Huh?
That's very righteous of you.
What do you mean?
You separate.
Because there are certain things which are important, which aren't necessarily the best. You know what I'm saying? Like, so the thing about The Matrix is that it changed special effects in movies.
Oh, with the running and the kicking and the
the fight scenes were all completely computer animated people. They basically put video game technology into a movie.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, like if you see in the fighting scenes, and I mean, if you remember what video games looked like back then, you can tell it's no longer Keanu Reeves, and it's basically just the video game version of him. Right. And what would be like the best computers at the time? I think it was
some
like
dude
2001,
hitting X
2002.
way too fast.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Asian guy.
in that sense, it's a very important movie because it changed how movies were made. You know, like Justin Bieber, for better or for worse, is a very important. He's a very important music artist because he was the first guy who made it from YouTube to the big time.
Really, he's the first.
He was the first guy who's become a superstar from YouTube, and he wasn't even one of the best YouTubers. He was a little kid that Usher found. But just that
Usher
concept,
didn't find him, yo.
Who found him?
Nobody, bro. Scooter Braun found the guy, and he noticed that he had some things on YouTube. Scooter Braun was already planning on giving him. He's one of these agents for these kids.
Scooter.
I think the story goes he was planning on giving him one of the standard. There's like a track that these kids take.
Okay.
These cute kids who have a little bit of talent,
right,
and really bad parents. I think that's basically the criteria. So they go to Disney and do like a 3, 4, 5 year like series in Disney.
Do like a pop album.
Right. Do a pop album.
Then they're free.
Blow up. Do some drugs. Blow up again.
Right.
Fall off and come back 12 years later.
Right.
With kids and a wife.
So that was the plan. And
that was the plan, but then so then Scooter's like, let's see if we can get this thing to blow up where people think that they blew him up. So we'll sort of push him out through YouTube. We'll get the word moving. We'll push him out until he catches. And then once from there, it's just wildfire.
So before he started on YouTube, Scooter had already found him.
Yeah. He had put stuff on YouTube. His mom had legitimately, without any preconceived notions, put things on YouTube.
Right.
People didn't find him.
Interesting.
I mean, some people found him.
Okay,
but they didn't do anything about it.
That's interesting, but either way,
pushed him out through
he's
YouTube.
still the first guy to be discovered through YouTube.
So
he changed music in that sense.
Yeah.
Regardless of what anyone's opinions are on this podcast.
I love JB. I'm just throwing it out there.
That's one opinion.
But I know you and Ari, my older brother, had a bet. I remember that.
What?
You had a bet years ago whether or not Bieber was going to crash. He was going to tank.
What did I say?
It was over a dinner.
Really?
You said he was not going to tank, I think, maybe, and Ari said he would tank.
He never really went off.
No, he didn't totally do that.
So Ari owes me dinner, that's what we're saying.
That's basically what I'm saying.
Oh, okay, fine. Then I'm glad we did this.
Yeah.
The whole podcast was worth it.
Somebody did. I don't know.
I have to admit, I have to be honest, I have no recollection. We made a lot of bets. And some of them I remember. Some of the bets I remember, and your brother still has not paid me back for some of those bets.
He's just going to tell you to come to me. You don't know how much money I owe that guy.
Really?
Yeah, I owe a ton of money.
Well, you were around here more. So apparently your brother has a gambling problem. That's what
he does.
That's what we discovered.
No, but he does. He has a gambling solution. The dude wins, bro. Are you deleting this again? You can edit this out.
I'm not sure. It depends how much I want Ari to hear.
No, but do you hear what I'm saying at all? Because this is sort of a big thing for me.
Just fill me in again. Just say it over again.
Do you hear what I'm saying about how to understand miracles that we learn about in our history?
Yeah, 100%. And it took me just.
Do you agree with my take on it?
It took me a bit to say because I was trying to keep it more on the secular level, because religiously I believe that God created the world with words, whatever exactly that means. And
From a
if we
secular
could,
level, it's not that hard to believe.
well, it is hard to believe 4,000 years ago.
That what?
Saying nowadays we have sort of gotten to the point where actual technology.
That's what I'm saying. It's not that hard to believe.
No, but they didn't have that technology back then. It wasn't a technology thing. It was a spiritual thing. You're saying.
Who cares? They had the info. They had the information.
No. So I'm saying that, but
that's why I keep saying there are multiple ways to get from point A to point B.
Right.
But
so
if you end up at point B, who cares how you got there?
That's fine. No, so I'm good with that. At the beginning, I was just trying to keep it on a more theoretical, scientific level.
Elon Musk has said multiple times that the odds of us living in a simulation are very, very high.
Okay.
So what would constitute the basic identity of a simulation? Just like
I don't understand where you're going with this.
Highly complex, a highly complex
world
of pixels and we're basically, according to some theoretical scientists and whatnot, it's very possible that we live inside of a highly interactive virtual reality game where we may or may not be directed by gamers who may or may not look like us, who are just way advanced, and they've created an algorithm and video game when they're playing us.
So besides for the scary repercussions of that, Tom Cruise,
I think I might be slightly taller. Slightly taller. Scientology, what is that thing?
Yeah, but even then,
essentially, we believe that we're living in some sort of a hyper-real.
No, but that's the difference between science and religion. That science believes that at this point, either you would have to have a being who is way advanced mentally to the point where you could connect with the matter around you, which is what we believe from a spiritual level, that we have people who have learned the secrets of the universe, and therefore they are in touch with the matter around them and can manipulate that, as opposed to the use of technology, which
is doing the same thing.
Which we're getting there, but we haven't totally reached it yet.
Yeah,
meaning I agree with you. I agree with you, but I can only agree with you on a spiritual level, because the technology doesn't exist yet.
Technology to do what doesn't exist yet? The technology to do a lot of things exists already. I don't find it.
I was saying technology. We haven't reached the technology yet, so I can only say it with you about a religious thing or a spiritual thing, because we believe people can reach those spiritual levels and control matter.
And we believe that you can reach those levels scientifically too. We've reached some pretty crazy levels already.
But not moving stones around just ET style, sticking out a finger and moving the stone.
No, I'm not saying we'll ever get there.
Okay, but that's the stories that we're talking about. I mean, that's the force, and that's the big rock with Yaakov,
Yeah, I'm not saying, we can easily move a big rock. And first of all, we're pretty close to moving giant rocks with just exoskeleton computerized.
Yeah, again, but that's technology. They didn't have that 4,000 years ago.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But they got to point B. They just got to point B in other ways.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm with you on that.
But they
just not technology.
It didn't require a. What I'm saying is, it doesn't require a faith-based a leap of faith to say that they were able to do these things. Because
how can you not say that? Because they didn't have the technology.
They don't need the technology.
What do they need?
They just need to know the makeup of the material that they're dealing with, which is what science knows.
And then do what?
And then manipulate it.
How?
Manipulate it through what we could have a much longer conversation about, through knowing the properties of it and knowing how to fiddle with it.
And what exactly happened? I'm saying, there wasn't a secret button on the rock that they pressed and it got lighter. The rock still weighed 2,000 pounds.
But if you imagine that we live in a globe, right? And imagine for a minute that there's no, we a lot of us know what space looks like, or at least relatively what it looks like. But just imagine it's not there, right? So we live in a globe. We can't see outside the globe.
Okay.
But imagine that there are millions of wires.
Okay.
All over the globe, stuck in, right? They're running input.
And how do you access these wires?
Running input and code, right?
Okay.
So, and then they're projected these, and then basically it's projecting a world. So we live inside of a projection. It's a computer. It's a computer projection.
Okay.
So you can either science basically looks at the projection of whatever the object is and studies the object.
Okay.
Right? What they did perhaps back then was, instead of looking at the object and trying to figure out what it's made out of, they looked at that and said, okay, which input is that coming from? Which wire is projecting this thing? And then I'm going to go to the wire.
Okay, how did they do that? Mentally? Meditation? I'm saying, what did they do?
You say, how did they figure
Spit
out...
on it? Blow on it? There had to be something.
How did they figure out which letters and which code was inputting this material
Yeah,
object?
meaning when you talk about it from a technology perspective, so I build this whole thing, and I build the thing, and then I'm able to do something. But if I'm just standing there with my hands, and I want to lift this rock, which is too heavy for one man to lift,
right?
What do I do right? Like, what happened?
It's information that was passed down from Adam.
Right. So that's a religious / spiritual information. Right,
but it doesn't need to negate the scientific makeup of the rock.
No, not at all. The science of the rock was the same, but the only way they could access the rock was not from technology or science. It was a spiritual power that they had received and studied.
Well, it was spiritual to in a sense, yeah, but they didn't need to break scientific possibility. They didn't need to break possibilities of what of matter. And
no, yeah, right, exactly, yeah, for sure. Meaning they didn't have to change this rock. They didn't have to. It was still a rock. They were just
just manipulated it the same way we manipulate it. They just did it in different ways.
Yeah. Okay.
That's all I'm trying to say.
I got it. But so the thing I just kept trying to say though is that it wasn't a technology thing.
It was not a technology thing,
right? And I see where we're getting confused. It's not that they changed the science of the rock. They mastered the science of the rock.
They mastered the science of a rock
but that's
differently than we have mastered it.
But that's still a spiritual thing. It's not a technological thing. It's not a scientific thing.
No.
Right,
yeah.
Okay.
It's the science of spirituality that they figured out.
I can go for that.
Yeah. It's a decent place to stop for right now.
Yeah. All right. So we got to wrap it up.
There's a lot more there because I have a lot of theories on where this goes.
Yeah, this was totally not where we expected to go.
No.
This is supposed to be
C-3PO's gay, by the way.
C-3PO. Okay. I was saying that's where I thought we were going to go with this. Instead, we got somewhere totally different. But that's the point on the back of the base.
Back to the base always leads to different places.
All right, prophets. Make sure you get in touch with us. Give us your ideas for the next Truth and Whiskey episode, hopefully with whiskey.
Or any episode at all.
And any topic that you want to hear
discussed,
about.
Hit us up.
We are reachable at backofthebase@gmail.com. Base is spelled BEIS. Check the description. You'll be able to see all the places that you can download this podcast. You can reach us. You can reach me on Twitter at Kumzitzguy, KUMZITZGUY, and we're both on Facebook, Yehuda Rabinowitz and Yosef Siegel. Any last words?
Stay classy, you fools.
We're looking for you next time, prophets. We don't know exactly where we'll be, but we always trust that you'll know how to find us.
Faith-based.
I think, by the way, we should call our listeners prophets.
Prophets?
Or we should refer to the listeners as prophets. I'm saying, I think the idea is that we should be like, all right, prophets, calling all prophets.
Calling all prophets.
Another episode of Back of the Base.